Ladies and gentlemen, continue with capitalism questions. What about China and its system of state capitalism? And what does it pose a threat to us in the future? And what are we going to do about it? And what do I think about it? Well, if we're going to say that China today has state capitalism, whatever that may mean, because capitalism, by the way, by definition means the absence of the state from the economy. So what state capitalism would be is bizarre. But if the system that they have today, if we describe that as capitalism, we have to say that Nazi Germany had capitalism then, don't we? In the 20s and 30s, Germany and Italy were both capitalist societies, is that right? Now Mussolini, I believe, who went in 22, took power in 22 in Italy, was the first fascist. And he took power on lines of economics rather than on lines of race. Fascism being associated with race is just because of Hitler. Fascism as such is an economic theory akin to Marxism and socialism. It's just for the nation. And Hitler said for the race, and ever since then fascism equals racism. But it's not. Fascism is an economic theory. In the economic theory of fascism, individuals own property, but they don't have any right to it. So you have massive corporations which are subject to the government's whim. That's why America sometimes is described as a system of fascism. We're in a fascist state today because we are beholden to the state. We pay 40% of our income to the state. We are kept tabs on very closely by the state. Companies are beholden to the state, have to do what the state says, and so on. Very different from how it was in the 1800s. So today, America could be said to be a state of in a state of fascism. But the 20s and 30s in Germany and Italy were states of capitalism, I guess, state capitalism, because they allowed us to invest massive amounts of money. We built up all kinds of things in Germany and Italy. We rebuilt Germany and built up Italy, and subsequently we had to fight them. But we built them. Nobody else did. Some from France, a little bit of wealth from France, a little bit from Britain. But America, I mean, we were the biggest source of wealth on the planet. That's all there was to that. And if you call those capitalist states, then I just pose the historical query. What's China going to do? Is China's state capitalism going to continue down a path towards more freedom, and at some point they're going to establish a constitution or something? Or are they just going to fumble along in a half-statist sleep for another century or two? As it is, they can't make safe pet food. As it is today, they have all kinds of problems, very minimal problems that other nations in the world don't have. And to say they pose a threat to America right now is a little silly. 50 years and a lot of development, they might. But that presupposes a lot of development. Here's why. Numbers in history have never been the final argument. Never. Look at Britain. Postage stamp that it is. Teeny tiny thing. And for 200 years Britain ruled the waves. For 200 years you couldn't touch Britain. Postage stamp that it was, Russia couldn't do anything to Britain. France and all of its possessions in Africa and all around the world couldn't do anything to Britain. America was able to establish its independence from Britain. Look at the United States in the Cold War against Russia and China. China and Russia were allied up until 71 or 72 when they had the big falling out. And then after that the Russians were all mad about the yellow peril, the death from China or whatever. So why didn't they win in the 50s and 60s if numbers are the final argument? Because they had a third of humanity suffered under the yoke of communism at that point. But that didn't do it. That didn't finish it. What is the final argument? I'll remind you, there was a massive army that was sent to invade a fragmented little country that was broke up into constant civil war. This army is said to have 2 million men and drank rivers dry. Now today, China's army has 5 million or something. Today, America's army, I don't think we have 1 million men in the army in the United States. I don't think so. We might, but I don't think so. But they had a 2 million man army, and this was about 300 years before the birth of Christ. The Persian King Darius invaded Greece, and as you all know, shortly thereafter Alexander the Great invaded Persia, and Persia ended for all of time. So numbers have never been the final argument. That little postage stamp of Greece invaded and took out Persia, broke it up into several different colonies. The descended state, the Ptolemaic states, descended from Alexander's empire, and then intelligent, educated Greeks from Greece proper poured into the cities across that empire to rule, to become the rulers, because they were educated and they could come and do things. They came in and did things that were productive and efficient that the Persians never could have done and would have done. So the just 1 or 2 Greeks among 1,000 Persians made a big difference, and that's what led to pretty good standard of living over the next few centuries. It allowed Rome to inherit sort of that system of intelligence and science and productivity, and it gave us everything we have, and the postage stamp of Greece gave us that. So numbers have never been the final argument, and America's got quite a few. We'll be okay, I think. And China, I think we should get all the immigrants we can. First of all, you shouldn't be allowed to hold other people outside of America. You shouldn't be able to keep them out just to preserve your standard of living. That's not the definition of selfishness. You can't hold others down for your selfishness. But aside from that, so we should allow immigration. We could use more people. There's no reason not to have them. Denmark, for example, with its 5 million people, is not going to pose a threat to America, no matter what the exigencies of world power may be, and no matter what ancient Greece did to Persia, Denmark will not invade and destroy America. So numbers are not the final argument, nor are they irrelevant. China, therefore, doesn't win just because it's massive. It has to be free first, and America, with 6% of the world's population, spend half of the world's spending on military, while we have the highest standard of living on the planet. You can't account for that in any way but freedom. And until China disposes with state capitalism and embraces individual rights, they will not pose a threat. Well, they might pose a threat in the way that Soviet Russia did, or the way that Hitler did, but they won't pose a threat the way that Greece posed a threat to Persia.